The Rainmaker is a very complex delay module, and with that much complexity it can be a little intimidating. But once you know your way around the panel, it's actually quite efficient, fun, and rewarding to dial in your own custom delay settings. We're going to start by focusing on the delay section here on the left, which is broken up into global and per tap edit parameters. The delay and comb sections can be toggled on and off with the red effects on buttons, and the source can be muted with the gray mute buttons, which causes the LED to flash. I'll be starting with Rainmaker on the default preset of 1 tap delay. So let's bring in the Atlantis here. So I've got the Atlantis plugged into the left input. You'll notice this arrow here indicates that the left input is normal to the right input, meaning that if I bring this knob up, we can hear it on the right channel as well. Unity is at 12 o'clock, so it's usually not necessary to turn the inputs all the way up. The delay section has 3 global controls. We've got our delay feedback, pitch shifting, and our feedback tone. And if your feedback ever gets totally out of control, you can hold down the clear button to clear the delay buffer. So Rainmaker's delay line has 16 taps, or offset points in time from which the output can be taken. There are parameters that can be edited individually per tap, and global parameters that affect all taps. Taps can be edited individually while in the tap edit mode, so with the LED next to tap number lit up. And so here we can edit the mute, level, panning, filter cutoff, filter cue or resonance, filter type, and pitch shift per tap. So you just select the parameter that you want to edit, select the tap that you want to edit. It'll show up with a outline to show that it's being edited. And you can set the individual volume levels of all those taps. And then if you go to mute, you can mute individual taps, and they'll show up with a kind of gray checkerboard to show that they've been muted. And we can do the panning of individual taps if we'd like. We can change the filter cutoff of individual taps. This isn't going to do anything until we've selected a filter type. Same thing with filter cue, so this is the resonance of those individual filters. And so this is a good one to note, that you can adjust all parameters. If you've selected a page and go back to the edit menu, you can edit them all together, or you can press it in and edit in ramp mode. And then if we go back to the tap menu, go to type. So you can select between no filter, low pass, bandpass, and high pass. And so once again, we can go here and change them all to low pass, all to bandpass, all to high pass, or if we press it in again, we can edit the filter types in ramp mode. We can dial in individual pitch shift per tap. And that goes all the way up to 15 semitones, and all the way down to negative 16 semitones. If we press the button again, we can do more fine detuning. This does its detuning in 3-cent increments. So edit mode is where you edit the global changes, global parameters that affect all of your taps. So starting at the top left, we have randomize, and so you can choose a parameter that you want to randomize, and you just push in the encoder to engage that randomization. And you can even go all taps, which will randomize all parameters for all taps. You can also, so if you hit the routing and config button 3 times, you can select randomize as a target for the trigger. So for this red button and the trigger input there. So if we hit the trigger button, we can see it's randomizing all the tap parameters. If we go back to our tap edit menus, we can see it randomizing those parameters. So this is a fun way to find happy accidents or get some ideas and then start dialing in things afterwards. Grid determines the time division of the clock or beat that each tap uses. Right now it's set to 4 per beat, so each tap is a quarter of a beat later than the preceding tap, and every 4th tap will be on the beat. Changing this division will quickly create more complex rhythms with odd-numbered time divisions. And settings of 16 per beat provide higher resolution and produces reverb-type sounds, while 1 per beat is much slower. So let's go ahead and bring that back in, bring up our feedback. So if I set that to 3 per beat, go all the way up to, say, 16. You can hear it's a much faster delay. Stacks or piles lets you group together taps with the same delay times. The delay time of a stack will be equal to the last tap in the stack. So for example, if we set this to 4 stacks of 4, taps 1 to 4 are now grouped. With tap 4's delay time 5 to 8, I'll use tap 8s, 9 to 12 use 12s, and 13 to 16 will use tap 16's timing. This is really useful if you want to have more than one change take place at a time. So with 4 stacks of 4, we can have 4 things happen at a time. For example, we can have the pan spread in opposite directions at the same time. Low pass and high pass filters can be used in tandem, or you can create chords using the pitch shift settings. So let's see how that sounds. Rainmaker's preset 23, 251, takes advantage of stacks to create chords in the delay signal. While using Rainmaker to generate chords, you will probably want to avoid feedback to prevent dissonant results, depending on what you're going for. And changing the grid size will change the rhythm of those chords. So clock time determines the rate used to calculate the times of all the delay taps. You can either dial this in manually with the knob, you can tap the tempo, which won't work while you're on the time. And the division won't do anything unless you have something plugged into the clock input. But you can create a clock division of the external clock from 1 all the way up to 256. So let's see what that's like. So the time mod section here lets you use an internal LFO to modulate the delay time. And so you can choose between different wave shapes of LFO, and you can adjust the level and the rate. If it's not reacting, that is probably because it's been assigned to your mod A and B. So if you go to level, you can use the mod A and B controls to control that LFO rate. And the little LED there gives you an indication of how fast it's going. And you can make alternative assignments by pressing the button here and just selecting different destinations. So you can have it control, and you just press it in to select it. So for example, filter cutoff and filter Q. And now I can use this to control. You can also modulate the mod A and B controls using the CV inputs down here. Mod A is normal to mod B, so if you don't want to control both parameters, make sure you turn down mod B. The grain settings here, this sets the quantity and sizes of the grains used for granular pitch shifting, and this you can use 1 to 4 grains. So the lower quantities mean that they'll overlap by 50%, whereas the higher quantities only overlap by 25% with a slight random offset to avoid excessive comb filtering. Larger grain sizes will create smoother pitch shifting sounds. It's usually a good idea to have a grain size that is smaller than your delay time. Although this sounds pretty cool right now. Now if you really reduce your grain sizes, you can totally destroy things and get some pretty interesting bell-like tones. So there you get some pretty interesting comb filtering going on. So with tap number, you can control when Rainmaker sends signal to the feedback loop. So tap number 4 means that Rainmaker is taking the feedback at the same timing as tap number 4. In this preset, both the left and the right are set to 4, but we can change that to be separate. And how this affects the timing of your delay is going to depend on your delay clock time, as well as your time division and your grid settings. So using, let's get it back to 4. Actually, it's worth mentioning, if you make an adjustment to the right tap and go back to the left tap, they'll edit in tandem now. And you can just keep scrolling and it'll reset back to be together. So if you use earlier taps, you're going to get faster rhythms. To make this more noticeable, let's get some more taps going here. So now it's set to, both are set to 1. It's going to be using the time division is, so it's at about just under 120 beats per minute. It's dividing it by 4, and so if we go here, bring up the feedback, we'll be able to hear it doing it based on the timing of that. Yeah, by having different numbers, you can get some pretty interesting rhythms. tap number is set to all, this means the feedback comes from the output sum of all active taps. So in this mode, feedback levels can build a lot more quickly. So instead of taking feedback from the timing of one tap, you're taking feedback from each of those individual taps. So you can hear that feedback building pretty quickly. So after all, you have comb size. And so comb size is referring to the comb filtering section down here, the size of the combs here. And so this is going to make more sense when we get into the comb filtering section, but the comb size has a huge possible range between all the way down. It also depends on your division, so it can go all the way down to 4 milliseconds all the way up to over 20 seconds. And you can control it with this knob as long as the clock source is set to comb size here. And if you have the trigger set to freeze, you can grab it and you can actually manipulate that comb size and your feedback loop in real time. And for example, if you have like an LFO plugged into your mod A and you assign... Oh, actually, you don't even have to do that. There's a comb size input. In addition to the per tap pitch shifting, there is also a cumulative pitch shift control in the feedback menu. Left and right can be set independently with either coarse or fine settings. Coarse detuning will quickly shift things out of audible range. This is great for rising or descending pitch delays as found in classic eventide effects units. Groove affects the rhythm of the delay by offsetting the tap timing into different patterns. This can add an interesting dynamic to the delay pattern, but it will not be apparent unless the amount is turned up. So let's go ahead and increase the amount here. Changing the grid size will have a large impact on how this sounds as well. Now I found this worked pretty noticeably with grid set to 2 per beat, taps set to 16. I'll turn off the slip. And let's go through the different types here. Yeah, so that's your groove types. So lastly, we've got this page here with reverse and wet dry. So reverse is pretty self-explanatory. It just reverses the delay buffer, starts it playing backwards. So you can definitely get some cool stuff going on there. And this is something, of course, that you can assign to the trigger. So you can toggle it to reverse there, and you can just toggle that on and off there. But while it's selected there, it won't let you do it. So if you go there, then you can toggle it on and off. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And of course you can feed a CV input there and trigger it in time with your patch. So the wet-dry balance, this controls the balance of the delay section separate from the global wet-dry control. So this is useful if you're using the delay section in conjunction with the comb section and you need to set an independent balance in order to properly feed the comb section. Or, we'll get into that more when we start covering the routing in meters and the comb section in the next video. So yeah, thanks for watching.